Legend tells of a ring created by an ancient evil that gave its wearer the power to enslave the world. Believed lost for centuries, it has now been found.
Is it secret? Is it safe? Become who you were born to be.
A day may come when the courage of man fails.
The Lord of the Rings, everything you need to know. Let's introduce it. There is hardly anyone who does not know about this trilogy. This successfully 3-part series is a landmark in the history of cinema. It is not the story nor acting which make it a significant milestone for a cinema industry, but the creation of this franchise from beginning to end is a masterpiece in itself.
What business does an elf, a man, and a dwarf have in the Riddermark?
Sauron's forces have begun their attack. He is using Saruman.
If you are wondering why this series is so much important, then stay tuned till the end, because the film gossip will describe everything about it. Now let us get started.
Whatever happens, stay with me.
This day, we fight!
Before we get started, let's have a quick look at its premise. This franchise consists of 3 parts and its genre falls into categories of epic fantasy adventure movies. The story follows a hobbit, Frodo Baggins, who along with Fellowship embarks on a quest to destroy the One Ring in order to defeat its maker, the Dark Lord Sauron, which is the main antagonist of this story.
This task is appointed to you.
I know what I must do. It's just, I'm afraid to do it.
Even the smallest person can change the course of the future.
As the story progresses, the Fellowship splits into 2 factions in which Frodo continues his journey to Mount Doom, where the ring will be destroyed. On the other hand, remember companions of Frodo makes a strategy to divert the attention of Sauron by waging wars on his army. At the end, after much struggle and hardships, Frodo finally destroys the ring in Mount Doom and Sauron is destroyed along with his army.
Sauron, the enemy of the free peoples of Middle-earth, was defeated.
Now let's talk about origins. As some of you already know about the fact that these 3 films are based on a novel of the same name written by J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien, the famous British writer and academic, published his original novel Lord of the Rings in 3 volumes in 1954-1955. It took him almost 10 years to finish this epic novel, which was intended to be for children, but later it became a more serious and darker novel for adults. During this period of 10 years, Tolkien had constant support from his friend and colleague at Oxford University, C.S. Lewis, the author of Chronicles of Narnia.
Order set. The pieces are moving.
Now let's talk about the development. Tolkien published his work in 1955, a time in which the Hollywood industry was at its peak and it was the start of the golden era from cinema and industry. At this time, some people tried to adapt this epic novel into animated films, but somehow they ended up with unfinished scripts. Those people who were interested in developing movies based on this story were Walt Disney, Al Products, and William Snyder. These filmmakers and producers were interested in adapting Tolkien, and for that purpose, many famous directors like Stanley Kubrick, George Lucas, and David Lean were approached, but due to budgetary issues and rights of adapting these stories become a major challenge. For many years, the rights to adapt Tolkien's work passed through by major studios, but none of them were ready to make something out of it. In 1976, United Artists bought rights and then sold them to the producer, Saul Zaentz, which developed an animated series based on The Hobbit and the first half of The Lord of the Rings. In 1955, Miramax had purchased the rights from Saul, and it was the time when Peter Jackson met with Harvey Weinstein, owner of Miramax production company. Jackson, who was enthusiastic about this project, tried to convince Harvey for developing a series of this epic novel. But to his surprise, Harvey insisted to make only 1 film instead of 3. But Jackson was not agreed because he knew it wasn't possible to do justice with this story in 1 film.
The ring must be destroyed.
It was made in the fires of Mount Doom. Only there can it be unmade.
Ultimately, Jackson was turned down by Harvey, but his luck struck with an opportunity when he met with Robert Shaw, the founder of New Line Cinema. Robert had already bought rights from Miramax a while ago, and he was willing to make a trilogy with Jackson. So, after almost 44 years of Tolkien's published work, the adaptation of his novel into a film franchise started, which subsequently became a greatest franchise ever made.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
Now let's have a look at casting. It is interesting to know that before meeting with studio heads, Jackson had developed the scripts and he also had an idea about the cast and production of these films. As you know, this series has an ensemble cast, and therefore, for every character, it was hard to choose an appropriate actor. For example, for the role of Gandalf, Sir Patrick Stewart and Christopher Lee was also considered. But after seeing Sir Ian McKellen's audition tape, he became Jackson's first choice. Viggo Mortensen, who was phenomenal in the role of Aragorn, was not the first choice of director and producers. Instead of him, Jackson wished to cast Sir Daniel Day-Lewis in this role, but Daniel declined his offer and the role went to Viggo. Elijah Wood was selected from the list of 150 actors who auditioned for the character of Frodo Baggins, and he was the first one chosen in the entire cast of this series.
The weapon of the enemy is a gift. Let us use it against him.
You cannot wield it. None of us can.
Sean Bean, who played the role of Boromir, wasn't the first choice either. Before him, Liam Neeson was approached, but he turned down the offer. Helena Bonham Carter was interested in the role of Arwen, love interest of Aragorn, but New Line Cinema chose Liv Tyler for Helena. For the characters like Pippin, Sam and Merry, actors were selected from the list of people who were auditioned as Frodo Baggins. So after almost 1.5 years of careful consideration and a hectic search for a suitable match for each role, the whole cast was selected.
A new power is rising. It's victory.
Now let's discuss the critical response. There is no other film series that can ever compete with this franchise in terms of success, both critical and commercial. Many film critics named it the greatest series ever made. It is the only series who have earned more Oscar awards than any other movie franchise, and it earned a total of 17 awards out of 30 nominations, which makes it the most Oscar-winning series of all time. Till today, there has not been any film or film franchise that can compete against it. Let's talk about effects on film industry. Since the release of these movies, the film industry has never been the same because of the standards set by Jackson and his team. Jackson himself became a big name in Hollywood, and now people consider him the same status as other legendary actors like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. Lord of the Rings changed the perception of Hollywood people about the genre of epic fantasy because the special effects, editing and production design of this series opened new doors for use of technology and CGI in movies.
10,000 orcs now stand between Frodo and Mount Doom.
Let's have a look on box office performance. In terms of revenue, this franchise is one of the most profitable series of all time. Currently, it ranked at number 9 position with $2.981 billion in revenue against a total production budget of $281 million. With only 3 movies of this trilogy, it leaves behind other series like Fast and Furious and Jurassic Park.
Then let us be rid of it. Once and for all.
I can't do this, Sam.
Don't you let go.
If you enjoyed this video, do subscribe our channel The Film Gossips. And for more videos like this, hit the bell icon.